I never thought the sound of a phone ringing at 2 in the morning would be the sound of my life starting over, but life has a funny way of slapping you in the face when you least expect it. I was sitting in my recliner in the dark, just staring at the streetlights buzzing outside. My old house was quiet. It was always quiet these days. Too quiet. The kind of silence that gets into your bones and makes you feel like you are already a ghost before you are even dead. I am 68 years old, and for the last 10 years I have been invisible. My daughter Rebecca made sure of that. She did not want her fancy country club friends knowing she came from a woman who worked double shifts at a diner just to put food on the table. Rebecca was all about image. She was about perfect hair and perfect cars and a perfect life where messy things like her mother did not belong. Then the phone rang. It was a jarring scream in the silence. I stared at it. Nobody called me this late unless someone was dead or selling something. My heart started hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. I reached out with a shaky hand and picked up the receiver. "Hello," I said, and my voice sounded rusty, like an old gate that had not been opened in years.
Grandma.
The word was a whisper. It was barely there, but it hit me harder than a freight train. It was Olivia, my granddaughter. I had not heard her voice in 3 years, not since Rebecca stopped bringing her around for Christmas, because my house smelled too much like old people and dog food according to her. "Olivia," I said, and I sat up straight. "Honey, is that you? You sound like you are a million miles away. I need you to come get me, Grandma. Please, I cannot stay here. I cannot do it anymore." She was crying. It was that ugly, terrified crying where you cannot catch your breath. My blood went cold. All the aches in my knees and the stiffness in my back just vanished. "Where are you, Olivia?
Tell me where you are right now."
"I am at the gas station on 4th and Miller. The one with the broken sign. Please hurry. Mom does not know I am gone yet, but she is going to wake up soon. She checks my room at 3 every night.
Please, Grandma.
I am coming, baby. You stay put. You go inside where the clerk can see you, and do not talk to anybody. I am on my way." I slammed the phone down. I did not even think. I grabbed my keys and my coat, and I was out the door in 30 seconds flat. My old Buick sputtered when I turned the key, and I prayed to every god listening that the transmission would hold up for just one more run. The engine roared to life, and I peeled out of the driveway like I was a teenager dragging race on a Saturday night. 4th and Miller was 20 minutes away. I made it in 10. The rain had started coming down hard, blurring the windshield. The wipers were slapping back and forth, trying to keep up. I pulled into the gas station lot, and I saw her. She was huddled under the awning, hugging a backpack to her chest like a life preserver. She was soaked. Her hair was matted to her face, and she was shivering so hard I could see it from the car. I threw the car into park and jumped out. "Olivia." She looked up, and her eyes were huge and red-rimmed. She looked like a scared deer caught in the headlights. When she saw it was really me, she dropped the bag and ran. She slammed into me and buried her face in my shoulder. She was so thin. That was the first thing I noticed. She felt fragile, like a bird made of hollow bones. I wrapped my arms around her and held on tight, feeling the rain soaking through my coat. "I got you," I whispered into her wet hair. "I got you, kiddo.
You are safe now."
We got in the car, and I cranked the heater up as high as it would go. She was shaking so bad her teeth were chattering. I did not ask questions. Not yet. I knew if I pushed her she might shatter. I just drove. I drove us away from the rich side of town, away from the manicured lawns and the gated communities, and back to my side of the tracks. Back to the small houses with peeling paint and porches that leaned a little to the left. When we got inside my house, it smelled like lavender and dust. It was not fancy, but it was warm. I went to the linen closet and pulled out a stack of towels and my old, oversized flannel robe. "Go get a hot shower," I told her. "Wash that cold off you. I am going to make you some tomato soup and a grilled cheese sandwich. The kind with the extra butter, just how you used to like it." She looked at me, and for a second I saw the little girl she used to be before the world got its claws into her. She nodded and disappeared into the bathroom. While she was in there, I went to the kitchen. My hands were shaking as I buttered the bread. I could hear the water running, and it was the best sound I had heard in years. It meant I was not alone. It meant I had a purpose again. But my mind was racing. Why did she run? What did Rebecca do? My daughter could be cold and she could be selfish, but I never thought she would drive her own kid to run away in the middle of the night. When Olivia came out, she looked like a drowned rat in that big robe, but at least she was dry. She sat at the kitchen table and stared at the sandwich like it was gold. "Eat up," I said, sitting across from her. "It ain't gonna eat itself." She took a bite and closed her eyes. Then she took another. And another. She ate like she had not seen real food in weeks. When the plate was empty, she pushed it away and wrapped her hands around the mug of hot tea I put in front of her. "Better?" I asked. She nodded. "Thanks, Grandma. I am sorry I called so late. I just didn't know who else to call." "You never have to be sorry for calling me Olivia. Ever. You hear me? Now tell me what is going on. Why are you running away from a mansion to sleep on an old lady's couch?" She looked down at the table, tracing the grain of the wood with her finger. Her nail polish was chipped and bitten down to the quick. "She is crazy, Grandma. Mom is losing it. She has this whole plan for my life, and I am not allowed to breathe unless she says it is okay." I leaned back in my chair, crossing my arms. "Tell me." "It started with the diet," she said, her voice quiet. "She said I was getting too thick for the debutante ball. She started weighing me every morning. If I was over a certain number, I was not allowed to have dinner. She calls it discipline, but I am hungry all the time, Grandma. I am so hungry, I feel dizzy in math class." My jaw clenched so hard my teeth hurt. Starving her. Rebecca was starving her own daughter because of some stupid party for rich people. "That ain't discipline, Olivia. That is abuse." "There is more," she said, and tears started welling up in her eyes again. "She wants me to date the Miller boy. You know, the family that owns the car dealerships. He is awful, Grandma. He touches me when I tell him not to, and he laughs like it is a joke." I told Mom. I told her he makes me feel sick. You know what she said? I was afraid to ask, but I had to know. "What did she say, honey?" "She said I need to grow up and stop being dramatic. She said the Millers are an important family and merging with them would be good for Dad's business. She said I was being selfish." The anger flared up in my chest, hot and bright. I wanted to drive back over there and slap Rebecca across the face. I had raised her better than that. I had raised her to respect herself and to work hard. Somewhere along the line, she traded her soul for a zip code and a designer purse. "She is selling you out," I said flatly. "She is trading your happiness for a business deal. That woman has lost her damn mind." "She came into my room tonight," Olivia whispered. "She had a dress. It was for the engagement dinner. She scheduled an engagement dinner, Grandma. I am 17. I have not even graduated high school, and she is planning my engagement to a guy who treats me like a prop." I told her no. I told her I wanted to go to art school. I told her I wanted to be a graphic designer. And I bet she loved that I said sarcastically. She screamed at me. She threw the dress on the floor and told me that as long as I lived under her roof, I was her property. She actually said property, Grandma. She said she invested too much money in my teeth and my skin and my education for me to throw it away on drawing cartoons. She locked me in. She took my phone, but I had an old burner phone I hid in my vent from 2 years ago. I reached across the table and covered her hand with mine. Her skin was ice cold. "You are not property, Olivia. You are a human being.
And you are safe here.
Nobody is going to lock you in anywhere." "But she's going to come for me," Olivia said, looking at the front door like the SWAT team was about to bust it down. "She's going to be so mad. She will call the police. She will tell them you kidnapped me." "Let her try," I said, and I meant it. "You are 17. In this state, you can choose where you want to stay if you are in danger. And if she tries to drag you back there, I will raise so much hell the devil himself will ask me to keep it down." I got a little bit of fight left in me, kiddo. We sat there for a long time just listening to the rain tap against the window. I could see the exhaustion pulling at her eyelids. "Come on," I said, standing up. "Let's get you to bed. You can take the guest room. It is just how you left it 3 years ago." She followed me down the hall. The room was small with flowered wallpaper that was 30 years out of style, but it was clean. She crawled into the bed and pulled the quilt up to her chin. It was a quilt I had stitched myself by hand years ago. She followed me down the hall. The room was small with flowered wallpaper that was 30 years out of style, but it was clean. She crawled into the bed and pulled the quilt up to her chin. It was a quilt I had stitched myself by hand years ago. "Grandma," she whispered just as I was turning out the light. "Yeah, baby. Mom told me you hated me." I froze. My hand hovered over the light switch. The air left the room. "What did you say?" "She told me you didn't want to see me," she said, her voice sleepy and slurred. "She said you thought I was a spoiled brat, and you didn't want anything to do with us anymore. She said that is why we stopped coming over for Christmas. She said you sent my birthday cards back unopened." I stood there in the dark feeling like someone had punched me in the gut. That liar. That manipulative snake. I had sent cards every single year. I had called and left voicemails until her mailbox was full. I had driven by their house and parked down the street just hoping to catch a glimpse of Olivia in the yard. Rebecca had told me Olivia was too busy with dance class and tutoring to talk. She told me Olivia didn't want to come to my dusty old house. She played us both, I realized. She kept us apart because she knew if we talked her house of cards would fall down. She knew I would see through her fake perfect life. "Sleep now, Olivia," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "We will talk about everything in the morning. Just know this. I have loved you every single second of every single day since you were born. And I ain't ever sent a card back in my life." I closed the door and went back to the kitchen. I did not sleep that night. I sat at the table drinking black coffee and watching the sun come up. I was not just a grandmother anymore. I was a soldier guarding the castle. And I was ready for war. Morning came with a banging on the door that shook the whole house. I knew who it was before I even opened the blinds. There was a shiny black Mercedes parked crooked in my driveway blocking my Buick. "Rebecca." I walked to the door, calm as you please. I unlocked the deadbolt and swung it open. Rebecca stood there looking like a storm cloud in a designer trench coat. Her hair was pulled back, so tight it looked painful, and her face was plastered with expensive makeup that could not hide the ugly look in her eyes. "Where is she?" Rebecca demanded. She did not say hello. She did not ask how I was. She just tried to push past me into the house. I stepped into the doorway, blocking her path. "I might be old, but I am sturdy. I spent 40 years carrying trays and hauling boxes. I ain't easy to move." "She is sleeping," I said. "And you're not waking her up." "Excuse me," Rebecca scoffed. She looked at me like I was a bug she wanted to scrape off her shoe. "This is kidnapping, mother. I will call the cops right now." "She is a minor." "She is 17, I said. "And she is terrified of you." "What kind of mother locks her kid in a room and starves her?" "Rebecca." "What kind of mother sells her daughter for a business merger?" Rebecca's face turned red. "Do not talk to me about parenting. You were never around. You were always working. I am giving her a future. I am giving her the best life money can buy. You are giving her an eating disorder and a nervous breakdown." I shot back. "And you are a liar. You told that girl I hated her. You told her I sent her cards back." "I did what I had to do," Rebecca hissed. She needed to focus. "She did not need you filling her head with your low-class ideas. You want her to end up like you. Alone in a dump like this, wearing rags and clipping coupons. I am saving her from being ordinary." I laughed. It was a dry, bitter sound. "You think being ordinary is the worst thing that can happen to a person. That is your problem, Rebecca. You are so scared of being regular that you forgot how to be human." "Give her to me," Rebecca screamed, losing her cool. She lunged forward, trying to grab my arm. "Get off my porch," I said, my voice low and dangerous. "Or what? You gonna hit me, old woman?" "Or I call the news station," I said. That stopped her cold. She froze her hand in midair. "What did you say?" she whispered. I said I call the news. Channel 5 loves a good human interest story, don't they? Rich socialite starves daughter to fit into debutante dress. Local grandmother saves the day. Imagine what your country club friends would think about that. Imagine what the Millers would think if they found out their future daughter-in-law is hiding in a shack because she is scared of her own mother. Rebecca went pale. Her image was her god, and I just threatened to burn down the temple. "You wouldn't," she said, but she sounded unsure.
Try me, I said.
You get in that fancy car, and you drive away. Olivia stays here until she decides she wants to leave. If you come back here screaming again, I make the call. And I got nothing to lose, Rebecca. My reputation ain't worth a dime. Yours is worth millions. She stared at me with pure hate in her eyes. She was shaking. Fine, she spat. Keep her. She is ungrateful anyway. She will be begging to come home in a week when she realizes you can't buy her the things she needs. You will see. She will hate it here. She turned around and marched back to her car. She slammed the door so hard, I thought the glass would break. I watched her back out and speed away, tearing up the edge of my lawn. I let out a breath. I didn't know I was holding. My knees felt weak. I closed the door and locked it. When I turned around, Olivia was standing in the hallway. She was wearing my old robe and holding a pillow. She had heard everything.
You stood up to her, she said.
Her eyes were wide with wonder. Nobody ever stands up to her. Dad just hides in his office. Well, I ain't your dad, I said, trying to keep my voice light. And nobody messes with my granddaughter. Not on my watch. She walked over and hugged me. It was a real hug this time, not a scared one. Now, I said, patting her back. How about we go find that burner phone of yours and get you a real breakfast? I am thinking pancakes. And bacon. The greasy kind. For the next few weeks, my house was full of life again. It was strange at first. We had to learn how to live together. Olivia was used to a house where everything was sterile and quiet. My house was clutter and noise. I listened to talk radio. I talked to my plants. I cooked with garlic and onions that made the whole place smell strong. But she settled in. It was like watching a flower finally get some water. The color came back to her cheeks. She started eating without looking at the calories on the package. I taught her how to garden. We spent hours out in the backyard pulling weeds and planting tomatoes. She didn't mind the dirt under her fingernails. In fact, she seemed to love it. One afternoon, we were in the attic looking for some winter coats because the weather was turning. The attic was full of boxes I had not opened in 20 years. Olivia was digging through a dusty cardboard box labeled family photos. Hey, Grandma, who is this? She asked, holding up a black and white picture. I squinted at it. That is your great Aunt Martha. She ran a bakery downtown. Tough as nails, that woman. Olivia smiled. We have cool ancestors. Mom always acts like we came from royalty or something. She never talks about the people who actually worked. She kept digging. Then she stopped. Her hand went still inside the box. What is it? I asked. She pulled out a large manila envelope. It was thick. It had Rebecca written on it in my handwriting. But underneath that there was another name written in faint pencil. It said Trust Fund. I frowned. I didn't remember that envelope. What is this? She asked. I don't know, honey. Open it. She undid the clasp and dumped the contents onto the dusty floor. It wasn't money. It was papers. Legal papers. Copies of bank statements. And a letter. A letter written on fancy stationery dated 15 years ago. Olivia picked up the letter. Her eyes scanned the page, and her mouth dropped open. Grandma, she said, and her voice was shaking again. You need to see this. I walked over and took the paper from her hand. I put on my reading glasses. It was a letter from a lawyer, addressed to Rebecca. Dear Mrs. Sterling, per your instructions, the inheritance left to Olivia by her late grandfather has been moved into the holding account under your management. As the sole trustee until she turns 18, you have full discretion. I stopped reading. The room spun. Grandfather. My husband, Frank. He died broke. We had nothing. He didn't leave an inheritance. He left me with medical bills and a leaky roof. Where would Frank have gotten money to leave Olivia? I looked at the bank statement attached to the letter. The balance was huge. It was life-changing money. 6 figures. This doesn't make sense, I whispered. Your grandpa didn't have money. Olivia was looking at the dates on the statements. Grandma, look at the deposits. They aren't from Grandpa Frank. They are from an insurance settlement. A wrongful death suit. I grabbed the papers back. I looked closer. The settlement was from a factory accident. The date was 20 years ago. Suddenly it hit me. A memory I had buried deep down because it hurt too much. My brother. Olivia's great-uncle Joe. He died in a factory explosion. He had no kids. No wife. I was his only living relative. But Rebecca told me Joe died with massive debts. She told me the lawyers took everything. She said she handled the estate for me so I wouldn't have to deal with the stress while I was grieving Frank. I signed the papers she gave me. I didn't read them. I trusted her. She was my daughter. She stole it, I whispered. The words tasted like ash in my mouth. She stole Uncle Joe's money. She told me there was nothing. But she put it in a trust for you and made herself the manager. Olivia looked at the balance again. Grandma looked at the withdrawals. I looked. Money for a Mercedes. Money for the country club membership. Money for vacations to Europe.
She spent it, I said.
She spent your inheritance. She spent the money my brother died for on purses and parties. That is why she wants me to marry the Miller boy, Olivia said softly. The realization was dawning on her face. She is broke, Grandma. Or she is getting close to it. If I turn 18 and ask for the trust fund, she goes to jail. But if I marry rich. If you marry rich, you won't need the money, I finished. And she can keep hiding the lie. The silence in the attic was heavy. It was not peaceful anymore. It was charged with electricity. She didn't just steal from me, Olivia said. She stole from you. She let you work at that diner until your feet bled while she was spending Uncle Joe's money. She let you live in this house with the drafty windows while she lived like a queen. I looked at my granddaughter. She wasn't a scared kid anymore. She looked furious. And she looked strong. What are we going to do, Grandma? I looked at the papers in my hand. Then I looked at Olivia. We are going to get a lawyer, I said. And we are going to take back what is ours. But first we need proof. We need the originals. And I know exactly where she keeps them.
Where?
In the safe in her office. The one behind the painting of the sad clown. She thinks it is art. I always thought it was creepy. How are we going to get in there, Olivia asked. She has cameras everywhere. I smiled. It wasn't a nice smile. It was the smile of a woman who had been underestimated her entire life. She has cameras looking for intruders, I said. She ain't looking for her mother. And she certainly ain't expecting us to crash our engagement party. When is the party? This Saturday, Olivia said. Good, I said. That gives us 3 days to prepare. We're going to that party, Olivia. But we ain't going to celebrate. We are going to burn her kingdom down. Saturday came fast. The air was thick with humidity and nerves. We didn't go out and buy fancy new dresses for the occasion. We didn't have the money for that, and frankly, we didn't need costumes. I ironed my best Sunday slacks and a crisp white blouse. Olivia put on a simple black dress she had packed in her backpack. She pulled her hair back and scrubbed her face clean. She looked like a warrior. We parked the Buick 2 blocks away from the house. I didn't want the valet sneezing at my car. We walked the rest of the way in silence. The street was lined with cars that cost more than my house. We could hear the music drifting down the block. It was classical music. Boring and stiff, just like Rebecca. Ready? I asked her as we reached the massive iron gates. Olivia took a deep breath. She looked at the house that had been her prison for 17 years. Ready, she said. The front door was open. People were spilling out onto the porch holding champagne flutes and laughing that fake rich people laugh. Nobody stopped us. I guess they assumed if we were walking in with our heads held high we belonged there. Or maybe they just didn't see us. To them, women like me were just furniture. We walked into the grand foyer. It was packed. There were flowers everywhere. Massive arrangements of white lilies that smelled so strong it made me gag. There she is, I whispered. Rebecca was in the center of the living room holding court. She was wearing a silver dress that looked like liquid money. She was laughing and touching the arm of Mrs. Miller. The Miller boy was standing nearby looking bored and checking his watch. Okay, I said to Olivia.
Stick to the plan.
You go be the distraction. I will get the papers. Olivia nodded. She let go of my hand and walked straight into the lion's den. I watched her go. She didn't shrink this time. She walked right up to the circle of people. Mom, she said loud enough to cut through the chatter. The room went quiet. Rebecca spun around. Her smile faltered for a second, but she plastered it back on. Olivia, darling, she chirped. We were wondering where you were. You look simple. Go upstairs and change into the dress I laid out for you. The Millers are waiting. No, Olivia said.
I didn't wait to see the rest.
I slipped into the hallway while everyone was staring at the drama unfolding in the living room. I moved fast. My heart was pounding in my ears, but my feet were steady. I knew this house. I knew where Rebecca hid her secrets. I reached the office and slipped inside, closing the door softly behind me. It was dark in there. The only light came from the street lamps outside. I walked over to the painting of the sad clown. It was an ugly thing, but Rebecca insisted it was a masterpiece. I gripped the frame and swung it open. There was the safe. I stared at the keypad. I had a hunch about the code. Rebecca was the most self-absorbed person I had ever met. She wouldn't use Olivia's birthday. She wouldn't use her husband's. I punched in Rebecca's birthday.
Beep.
The little green light flashed. I almost laughed out loud. Predictable. I pulled the heavy door open. Inside there were stacks of cash jewelry boxes and a thick leather binder. I grabbed the binder and flipped it open. There it was. The original trust documents. The bank transfers. The signatures forged in my name. And the most damning thing of all, a handwritten ledger where she tracked exactly where she spent the stolen money. It was all there in black and white. Range Rover. Trip to Cabo. Remodel of the master bath. I tucked the binder under my arm. I felt like I was carrying a bomb. I opened the office door and walked back toward the party. I could hear Rebecca's voice rising. She sounded frantic. You are making a scene, Olivia, she was hissing. You are embarrassing us. Go to your room right now. I am not going to my room, Mom, Olivia yelled back. And I am not marrying Chad Miller. I am going to art school. The guests were murmuring. The perfect image was cracking. I stepped into the living room. She ain't going anywhere, Rebecca, I said. Rebecca looked at me, and her face went white. It was the color of old paper.
Mother, she gasped.
What are you doing here? Get out. Both of you get out before I call the police. Go ahead, I said, walking into the center of the room. Call them. I think they would be very interested to see what I have in this binder. Rebecca's eyes dropped to the binder under my arm. She recognized it. I saw the terror flood her face. Don't, she whispered. Please don't. I turned to the crowd. I saw the Miller family looking confused and annoyed. You folks might want to hear this, I said, my voice booming. This is a celebration, right? An engagement. A merger of two great families.
Grandma, no, Rebecca screamed.
She lunged at me, but Olivia stepped in front of her. Let her speak, Mom, Olivia said, pushing her mother back. I opened the binder. I pulled out the trust document. My daughter Rebecca wants you to think she is a wealthy woman, I said, holding the paper up. She wants you to think she is generous. But the truth is she is broke. And she has been funding this fancy lifestyle by stealing from her own child. Gasps rippled through the room. That is a lie, Rebecca shrieked. She is senile.
She doesn't know what she is saying.
Is that right? I asked. I pulled out the bank transfer records. This is the inheritance my brother left for me and Olivia.
$600,000.
Rebecca forged my signature and moved it to a private account. And here I flipped to the ledger, is where she spent it. I looked directly at Mrs. Miller. She spent $50,000 on your anniversary gift last year using money that belonged to a 17-year-old girl. She was starving in her own home. She wants her son to marry Olivia because the money is gone. She needs a bailout. Mrs. Miller looked at Rebecca with pure disgust. She took a step back, pulling her son with her. Is this true, Rebecca? Mrs. Miller asked. Rebecca was shaking. She looked around the room looking for an exit, looking for an excuse, but there was nowhere to hide.
It was an investment, she stammered.
I was managing it. I was going to pay it back. I did it for the family.
You did it for yourself, I said.
You did it because you care more about what strangers think of you than you care about your own flesh and blood. Mrs. Miller turned to her husband. We are leaving.
Now.
Wait, Rebecca pleaded, grabbing Mrs. Miller's arm. We can explain. Don't touch me, Mrs. Miller snapped. She pulled her arm away and marched out the front door. The rest of the guests followed like rats fleeing a sinking ship. Within 2 minutes the room was empty. It was just the three of us. Rebecca stood in the middle of the ruined party surrounded by white lilies and expensive champagne that nobody drank. She looked small. "You ruined everything," she whispered, staring at the floor. "No, Rebecca," I said. "You did this. You built a house on sand, and you are surprised it fell down when the tide came in." I walked over to Olivia. She was crying, but they were happy tears. She looked free.
"Come on, kiddo," I said.
"Let's go home." Rebecca looked up. Her eyes were full of venom. "If you walk out that door, you are dead to me," she spat. Olivia turned and looked at her mother. She didn't look angry anymore. She just looked sad. "I was dead to you a long time ago, Mom," Olivia said softly. "You just didn't notice because I wasn't wearing the right dress." We walked out of the mansion and left the front door wide open. We walked back to my beat-up Buick. The night air tasted sweet. It tasted like justice. The next few months were a whirlwind. We took the binder to a lawyer. A real one, this time not one of Rebecca's country club friends. When he saw the ledger, he whistled low and long. "This is slam dunk fraud, Mrs. Sterling," he told me. We didn't press charges to put her in jail. Olivia didn't want that. She just wanted her life back. So we made a deal. Rebecca had to sell the house. She had to sell the cars. She had to liquidate everything to pay back what was left of the trust and cover Olivia's tuition. Rebecca moved to a condo in the next town over. She works as a receptionist at a dental office now. I heard she tells people she is just doing it for charity to keep busy.
She still can't let go of the lie.
We don't talk to her. Olivia got into art school. She got a scholarship for her portfolio, so we used the recovered money to get her a nice apartment near campus. But she comes home to my house every weekend. We were sitting on my back porch last night watching the fireflies dance in the yard. I had a glass of iced tea, and Olivia was sketching in her notebook. She looked healthy. She had put on weight, and her laugh was loud and real. "Grandma," she said without looking up. "Yeah, baby. Do you think she is happy?" "Mom, I mean." I thought about it. I thought about Rebecca in her little condo still pretending to be a queen in exile. "I don't think she knows how to be happy, Olivia. Happiness isn't about having the best stuff. It is about having people who see you. Real people." Olivia put her pencil down.
She looked at me. "I see you, Grandma."
I smiled and reached over to squeeze her hand. "I see you too, kiddo." She went back to drawing. I took a sip of my tea and leaned back in my chair. The house wasn't fancy. The paint was still peeling, and the porch still leaned to the left. But as I looked at my granddaughter sketching her dreams under the stars, I knew one thing for sure. We were the richest people in the world.